Nigeria was founded or established, or let me use created because Nigeria is a creation. Nigeria was created as a business entity. We've talked about the Royal Niger Company and all of those things. And the whole essence of business is money making. That's why everybody in Nigeria is about money. You cannot separate a people from their history, how they came about. If you looked at Nigeria, everybody in Nigeria is about money. You are going to school because you want to make money. You are whatever it is that a Nigeria is doing. If you looked at the motivating factor, it will all point towards making money, and that's a poverty mindset. Nigerians are so in love with money, so much that they think money, they breathe money. In fact, if you do not spend on a woman, you don't love her. You know, Someone said if you are looking for true love, it shouldn't be in a country like Nigeria where poverty is the major identity. When you look at Nigeria and you see how everybody is about money, it tells you how poor the country is. So it is poverty that will make you to want to be so much in love with money. And for those that are Bible adherers, you know how the Bible say it. The love of money is the root of evil. Money itself is not the root of evil, but the love of it. And if you put it side by side, the way Nigeria love money, or the way Nigerians love money, and the evil that has defined the Nigerian state, you will start seeing that the Bible is making a whole lot of sense in that aspect. You can explain the evil, the insecurity, the hardship, the whatever it is that is a vice in Nigeria, you can explain it along financial lines. It is poverty that is the motivating factor for crime. That's why there is a whole lot of insecurity in the Northeast, because the Northeast is about the poorest region in Nigeria, or the North in general, but Northeast in particular. The reason I'm saying this is just because of what I want to talk about today. You know, minimum wage. A presidential aspirant, Omoyele Sowore, said if he became president, he's going to increase the minimum wage to 500,000 naira. So someone would ask, where will the money come from? A lot of people will say, Nigeria has that kind of money. See what the politicians are stealing and the rest. But they told us that the country is anchored on production of crude oil, like the country is a crude economy. But then I have spoken about the crude oil in Nigeria before. If you looked at my page on YouTube, you will find it. Who owns the crude oil in Nigeria? The crude oil in Nigeria will not, or the proceeds from the crude oil in Nigeria will not sustain a 500,000 naira minimum wage. Remember, minimum wage doesn't mean what everybody earns. Minimum wage means the least earning, the least amount of money that is to be earned by a worker. So if you said minimum wage is 500,000 naira, so there are people who are going to be earning about 600, 700,000 naira monthly. So if we are depending on proceed from crude oil, the proceed Nigeria gets from crude oil, from the crude oil we claim to have, is not up to 10% because our proceed comes in the form of royalty, compensation. To make it simple, like oyibo people will come exploit the oil wey dey for our country, and then they will come give us small percentage of the oil, either as oil or as money, like dollar. Say, take this for the oil wey we come carry for your country, see wetin we wan give you, a very insignificant percentage. That percentage is what the Nigerian government uses to run Nigeria. So if you decided to say minimum wage is 500,000 and someone is asking where will the money come from, it's a very reasonable question. A very reasonable question. If you increase the minimum wage, it will further widen the already widened gap between the rich and the poor. It is important to note that there are Nigerians who live below the minimum wage. There are Nigerians who live below 30,000 naira a month. There are even Nigerians who live below 20,000 naira a month. There are Nigerians who live below 5,000 naira a month, and it's not like I am joking. What this means is that there are Nigerians who do not earn any money. They just, depend on giveaways. There are a lot of people who beg to survive. And I'm not talking about children, I'm talking about adults, 20, 15, 20, 30 years old. If you looked into the Nigerian society, you see unemployment on the street. So those people who are unemployed, they live below the minimum wage. And then you want to increase minimum wage to 500,000 naira. Those that are not earning, how will they survive in that kind of economy? Because increment in minimum wage would mean increment in the cost of living. So that's just a background to what I want to talk about today. Now, Nigerians do not like history. There are a lot of young people in Nigeria today. The Nigerian population is predominantly young people. So, like people born in the 90s. If you were born in like 1995, you would be around 30 years old today, and the Nigerian population is predominantly 30, 35. So a lot of people do not know what has happened before they were born or before they became adults, and they do not really care to go back to check. The minimum wage is 70,000 naira today, but there were times when the minimum wage in Nigeria was less than 3,000. Nigeria had a minimum wage of about 2,000, 2,500 naira, and life was not this difficult. So the question is, why is life so difficult and our minimum wage is 70,000? Well, let's look at the Fourth Republic that we are in right now. Fourth Republic is 1999 down to right now in 2026. In 1999, Abdul Salami Abubakar was head of state. The minimum wage was like 3,000 naira. It was Obasanjo who came in as president, and then the minimum wage became he increased minimum wage to like 7,500 naira, if I am not mistaken. Then in 2011, Goodluck Jonathan, the one that nearly all of you are saying is better than Buhari, better than Tinubu, he ran his economy on an 18,000 naira minimum wage. With 18,000 naira minimum wage, I think a lot of statistics declared Nigeria the largest economy in Africa. Well, that's a story for another day. Then in 2019, Tinubu came, and it is not these people that just decide to increase the minimum wage. It is the Nigerian masses that push for it, Labour, Congress, and the rest. Jonathan was getting ready to make the minimum wage 30,000 naira, and then he was shifted out of office. Buhari came, he continued the policy, and the minimum wage was 30,000 naira. All along, each time they were increasing this minimum wage, there was me, and there were people like me who would always shout against it. Increment of minimum wage is not going to solve any problem. Today, the minimum wage is 70,000 naira, and we are still complaining. We are asking, there are people who are saying 150k, there are people who are saying 200k, but Showore is saying 500,000. That's actually laughable. It's laughable, and I'm going to tell you why. If the if the increase in minimum wage seems like the solution to the problem, why have we been increasing minimum wage and still the economy gets worse? Common sense will tell you that increment in minimum wage is not the solution. For example, why are we saying we should bring back Jonathan, Goodluck Jonathan? Because during Jonathan, the economy was better than what it is right now. During Jonathan, the minimum wage was 18,000 naira. Right now, it is 70,000 naira, a difference of 52,000 naira. So why is it having so much increment, and yet we want to go back to the era when it was 18,000 naira? That will tell you that the increment of minimum wage is not the solution. It has never been the solution. It will never be the solution. If I were president, or if I had the powers, I would rather reduce the minimum wage, and I'll tell you why as we proceed. I'll talk about maybe comparative politics. I'll talk about Cameroon, and then maybe one European country. I'm using Cameroon because in the sub-region, okay, Cameroon is not in the West African sub-region, but in the sub-Sahara, Nigeria is bounded by Cameroon, and we share a lot of similarities, a whole lot of similarities, whether in politics, in government, because government and politics is not the same, in economy, in culture, in tradition, in religion. We share a lot, a whole lot. So I like to always use Cameroon as an example. Then maybe Portugal or Spain, because as you're getting out of Africa, you're hitting Portugal, you're hitting Spain. So those are the closest countries to Africa from Europe. But in Cameroon, for example, the minimum wage is about 46,000. Now I'll put it at 1,000. I will not say 46,000 CFA or 46,000 euros, because 46,000 is 46,000. It doesn't matter what your the name of your currency. So if I have 46,000 naira and someone in Cameroon is having 46,000 CFA, it's supposed to be 46,000. They are supposed to have the same value. It is failure of governance that will make you think you want to call the currency, the legal tender, you want to call the name of the currency. It is failure of government, it is devaluation of your currency that makes you want to think that euro or dollar is big, you don't have to compare. No, you should compare, because in this same Nigeria, there was a time when $1 was less than 1 naira. There was a time when 1 naira equated the dollar. There was a time when the naira was stronger than the British pound. So when we want to do these things, we find a way of cutting corners and making ourselves look funny. What $1,000 can do in America is supposed to be what 1,000 naira can do in Nigeria. It used to be so. The question you should be asking yourself is, why is it no longer so? So in Cameroon, the minimum wage is about 46,000 CFA, but an average Cameroonian will take 46,000 CFA and exchange it for naira and will buy a whole lot of goods in Nigeria. But that 46,000 CFA will not buy as much in Cameroon as it will buy in Nigeria. So what I am saying in essence is that a minimum wage earner in Cameroon with 46,000 CFA is a Nigerian dream. So you in Nigeria are earning 70,000, but you are poorer, way, way poorer than a Cameroonian who is earning 46,000. What that tells you is that the minimum wage is not the problem, but the policy of governance. If you went to Spain, the minimum wage in Spain is about 1,500 euros. With 1,500 euros, you are going to live large. What will 1,500 naira do for you in Nigeria? It won't buy a meal. But in Spain or other parts of Europe, they make use of the coins. 50 euros, 100 euros, 20 euros. These coins will buy you comfort. Why? Policy of governance. And now there is the structural adjustment program by the Bretton Woods organization, World Bank and IMF. That was the bedrock of the Nigerian tribulation that we are currently going through. And nobody have ever tried to talk about how to fix Nigeria looking at the structural adjustment program. The SAP will ask you to increase minimum wage. And because you have devalued your currency, the currency will not have any value. So you have to increase the minimum wage in order to meet up. While increasing minimum wage, you cut down on social services. You remove subsidy or reduce subsidy. That will plunge the economy into disaster. And mind you, we are in a country that is highly insecure. So when you increase the minimum wage, the kidnapper will increase their ransom. Everybody will start increasing to fit. And then at the end of the day, you've achieved nothing but increasing the cost of living. And those who are not earning at all will start suffering, and they'll start looking for how to survive. And then they will look towards crime, armed robbery, kidnapping, stealing, yahoo, because they want to survive. So the minimum wage is not the problem. But simple economics will tell you, when you have more money, you want to buy more goods. And when more money chase goods, the goods will start getting finished. So more money will be chasing fewer goods. And when the goods are fewer, they start becoming scarce. And when they start becoming scarce, they start becoming expensive. When I know that I am the only person that has rice in the market, I will start feeling funky. I will start feeling like Obasanjo. And then I will increase the price of my rice, because after all, you can't find it somewhere else. You will have to buy. And then increment of the price becomes normal. But people are not seeing it from that angle, because our minds are only focused on money. But then, if you thought the government can pay 500,000 for minimum wage, that will also mean that the government can afford free education. Because how much is actually the school fees in Nigeria? 150,000, 200,000. Why will government give you 500,000 when the government cannot pay 100,000 naira school fees? And needless to say, it is constitutional that we attend schools for free from primary to university level. Is in the constitution. So why don't we look at that? Let the students go to school for free. Let there be transport service. Let there be social service. Let there be fuel. Prices of fuel go down. Let there be electricity. All of these things we spend our money on. Let the government provide them. After all, that's the function of government. Why are we not looking at that one that is easily possible? When we are looking at 500,000 minimum wage. What are you doing with 500,000, for God's sake? What that means is that a gate man, I'm sorry, but a gate man will be earning 500,000. Hey, Jesus Christ. As soon as a gate man sees 500,000, he no go send the small garden wey he put for backyard. He will feel too big to go and cultivate his garden, so he will want to buy vegetables from the market, something he used to have at his backyard. And then the prices of vegetable will go high, will go up, because everybody wants to buy vegetable. You see, when we neglect microeconomics, we are finished. Government is supposed to improve welfare. When the welfare of the people is greatly and sufficiently improved, what government can actually do, it will not matter if the minimum wage was 5,000 naira. Because what actually will you be doing with money when government is providing whatever you would have wanted to do with money? It is the inefficiency of government is pushed on the citizens, or sorry, on the masses, because we are not citizens. When that inefficiency of government is pushed on us, we will lament that we no longer have what it takes to put up with their inefficiency, thereby give us increased minimum wage. And because they are looking for a coward's way out, they will increase the minimum wage. They are pushing their inefficiency on us. That said, what's the solution? The solution is that the Nigerian should have a reasonable purchasing power parity. That's the missing link. It wouldn't matter if a university professor earns 10,000 naira a month, as long as his purchasing power parity is uptight. The purchasing power parity is all it is about the economy. What can the money you have buy for you? You see in Spain or in Cameroon, their little minimum wage. Take Spain, for example. The minimum wage is about 1,500, but their purchasing power parity is very strong. So with 1,500, they can buy a whole lot of 1,500 1,500 euros is like about 2.3 million naira. You see? So with that amount, they can buy a whole lot of things. And then you will now say, 2.3 million naira monthly, let me find a way to relocate to Europe. You see why people are leaving? Because our purchasing power parity is nothing to write home about. When we used to have 1 naira for $1 or for €1, there is nobody that was talking about Japa. Nobody was looking at leaving Nigeria. People just went to school and come back. But because our 1 naira cannot afford anything, we want to go to where their $1 would afford a whole lot of things. So it is not about increasing minimum wage. It is about strengthening the purchasing power parity. Purchasing power parity simply means your economic strength, what it is, the money you have, no matter how small it is, can afford you. One way of increasing the purchasing power parity is by ensuring security. Insecurity is a very, very economically tasking situation. If you knew how much the government spends on insecurity, take for example the security votes, that giveaway that the federal government does on state governors. You know what that amounts to? That's in situations where there are no security problems, just normal security votes. Then imagine if it's a country that is stricken with banditry, Boko Haram, and the rest. That's the money that the government is supposed to put in the economy to make life better for Nigerians. But they are channeling it to fighting insecurity. So when the country is sufficiently secured, the economy will flourish. There are places where business people, farmers are afraid of going to because those places are not secured. And then because there is insecurity in a particular place, it is daredevil transporters that want to go there. So because they are taking risk, they will increase the transportation fare. And then the money you're supposed to use to buy food, you would now have to use it to pay transport. You know, the money we spend on private security, there are people who hire bodyguards. There are people, privatization of security. We put burglary proofs all around our houses. We build fences and put gates. These are monies we are supposed to use to make life better for us, but we are using those monies to protect ourselves because it's security. And then we pay ransom. There are people who already are saving money in case they are kidnapped. It's not a joke. In case they are kidnapped, let it be that there is money for ransom so that they will not be killed. So it happens just all over the place. Nigeria is not safe. So as the government is investing in fighting insecurity, the masses are investing in trying to protect themselves. So these money that are supposed to be invested in the economy, whether public or private economy, has been invested or is being invested in security. So you will not have so much with which you can bargain in the market. Another one is social welfare. The number one function or reason for creation of government is to provide security, so to protect lives and property. Second is to guarantee the welfare of the people, especially when we are a mixed economy. Now, uninterrupted power supply, free education, good roads, you know, there's a lot. Social amenities. Nigerians already spend a lot on all of these things. The money that we are using to buy fuel every day, the money we are using to buy diesel every day, to light up our houses and our businesses. If we had power supply, we will reserve that money to increase our purchasing power parity. So it's not about increment in minimum wage. Another one is price control. Nigeria is a place where you go to bed with fuel sold for 50 naira and you wake up, it is 150 naira. Where will a Nigerian get extra 100 naira over the night to purchase fuel? Take Cameroon, for example. Some commodities that were sold for 5,000 are still being sold for 5,000 today. Any commodity in Cameroon that has increased in its price, such commodity was gotten from Nigeria. Nigeria depends on Cameroon, Cameroon depends on Nigeria. There is the interdependency among nations. So when you see goods in Cameroon that are increasing in their prices, if you looked well, you see that those goods are coming from Nigeria. But Cameroon products Cameroon labor and services. It doesn't increase just like that. There is price control. In fact, when Tinubu said he has removed subsidy in 2023 and fuel price skyrocketed, Cameroon largely depend on Nigeria for petrol. Largely, especially the southern Cameroon. So in Nigeria, fuel got to about 500, 600 naira. But in Cameroon, the government didn't allow that to fall on the people. So they still maintained that their pricing system while they got the fuel from Nigeria. The only thing that happened is that the marketers will suffer rather than the people generally suffering. Cameroon is an African country. There is nothing special about it, but they have a governance system that is at least to a very small extent, to a very little extent, reasonable. But Nigeria is baptized with the most unreasonable thing that looks like governance. And rather than us looking at that, we are chasing shadows with increment in minimum wage. Another thing is the appreciation of the naira. Everybody, every day, they devalue the currency. You know, the World Bank, the IMF, and the unfortunate leaders of Nigeria would always agree to devalue the naira. When you devalue the naira, it doesn't have power, it doesn't really buy anything. So if the naira appreciates, it will not matter how much the minimum wage is, people can afford to buy because 1,000 naira will buy a whole lot of things. I have bought a plate of food in a restaurant. That thing we called food is ready. I bought a plate of food for 10 naira and it satisfied me. I can't forget it. The name of that restaurant was 1010. What that means is that with 10 naira, with 10 naira, go buy you food. I repeatedly ate jollof rice there with 10 naira in Nigeria. And it's just like we say, ibele full me. It's just that you will not have protein like meat. But they used to put this fish, this smoked fish, they'll break it in pieces. So as you're eating the rice, you'll be eating pieces of smoked fish. And everybody was happy. Why? Because the naira had value. But I don't know the last time I saw 10 naira with my eyes. People even hate, I'm sorry, I'm one of those. I don't like 100 naira. I don't like 50 naira. Because what are you going to do with it? But the countries we want to be like are still making use of coins. And the coins go a long way because their currency is appreciated. We do not appreciate our currency, we devalue it. And that is why the economy is not sustainable. Also, you can reduce import duty. The money you spend in paying for. I bought Golf 3 in 2009. I bought Golf 3 from Benin Republic for about 550,000 naira. Benin Republic Golf 3 like not Nigerian use Tokumbo, very wonderful. For 550,000, then Golf 3 was like the big boy's car. That was because of the import duty. But today, I think the import duty as at then was like, it was actually nothing to worry about. But today, the import duty on Gulf 3 will be about 2-3 million. So if the import duty is 3 million, how much will you buy the car? You see, so when you reduce the import duty, people will import more goods and will sell them cheap. I remember when Donald Duke was governor of Cross River State, they had their EPZ. They used to bring in these little small vehicles. They call them starlets. They used to call it pim pim because its horn was very sharp. Pim pim starlet, those little, they were Toyota products, I think. 150,000 naira. Almost every young person bought starlets. Almost every young person bought pim pim. And people were living their lives. But today, how much will you buy pim pim? Import duty. Then is the industrialization. Industrialize the country. We are always looking at consumption, just like Peter Obi said, we will turn from consumption to production. Build industries. There is the money to do that, but we just don't want to do that. Build industries. When you build industries, a lot of these goods that are imported will be produced in the country and it will go around, it will be cheap. We have the material resources, we have the labor. Another very important point is the demonopolization of the economy. Dangote is the one that wants to produce everything in Nigeria. If someone else is trying to produce, there will be blockades, When there are different people who are competing in the economy, prices of goods go down and then your purchasing power parity will increase. It's as simple as that. But when one person is the one who has everything to sell or who has a particular thing to sell, it would increase the prices at will. We used to buy cement in Nigeria for about, at least I know when cement was 700 naira. When cement got to 1,000 naira, when cement got to 1,500 naira in Nigeria, everywhere burst. As in, nobody won't take them. How could you sell a bag of cement for 1,500 naira? But today, a bag of cement is about 11,000 naira, and people are buying because it is Dangote. I remember when it was just MTN. When it was just MTN, a SIM card, a piece of SIM card was sold for about 35,000 naira. I had friends and family who bought SIM card for 35,000 naira. I bought my first SIM card for about 17,000 naira. But the communication system was demonopolized, and then what we have today, Glo came in, Zain, other network providers came in. And today, SIM card is totally free. That's what happens when there is competition. But when it is one person who is directing the economy, it becomes an economic tyrant. And there is nothing you can do about it. You will have to go and look for money to come and buy. And that's why you start asking for the increase in minimum wage. Then very important, subsidy. I do not know if Nigerians are under a jinx. I don't know if I should use curse. I don't know what is wrong with Nigeria. When someone came and was talking about removal of fuel subsidy, and I kept asking, what's the purpose of governance when you want to remove subsidy? You came and met the subsidy and you want to remove it. How was Nigeria when that subsidy was not removed? And people were saying, but you no get sense. If they remove subsidy, fuel go come cheap, everything go cheap. They will now put palliative to cushion the effect. And I was looking at Nigerians. I said, is it that I now started looking at myself as the one who is sick? Because removal of subsidy means making life difficult. Removal of subsidy means increasing the prices of that commodity. But they found a way of saying that removal of subsidy is going to make fuel cheaper. And, and people, professors, first class holders were supporting it, not supporting it as members of the political party, but supporting it as something reasonable. I was shocked. Since then, Nigeria no fit shock me. How can you remove subsidy? The role of government is to continually put subsidy in place so that life will be bearable for the people. But in Nigeria, the people are supporting government to remove subsidy. Jesus. That there are people who were eating the money for Jesus. So they've removed the subsidy now. What happened? So they've removed the subsidy. The people who were eating the money have stopped eating the money now. They were supposed to use the money and build refineries. Fuel will now, Nigeria will be flooded with fuel and everybody will buy fuel for 50 kobo. How far? You see, you Nigerians. But if we want to talk, I go argue heaven and earth, I go argue and this. I don't know. Then there is an important aspect to these things. Impunity. The politicians mess up with our monies. They steal and steal and steal and they go scot-free. These are monies that are supposed to be used to service the people. For every million naira the politicians stole, a million people suffer. A million people become poor. A million people are not able to purchase. Our monies are in the hands of our politicians. There are people who put money in ways. There are people who have monies that are getting spoiled. And then the naira doesn't have expiry date. So if the naira expires, people will not stack money in their houses. Other currencies have expiry dates so that the monies will be moving around. The EFCC was established to punish offenders, but the judiciary became a challenge because the EFCC doesn't have the power to punish. They only have the power to report, and then the court will punish. But when the EFCC, even though corrupt, but there are certain cases where they would follow a criminal to the end. When the EFCC presents suspects in court, they manipulate it. Someone will start taking sick leave. At the end of the day, nothing happens. The next thing you will see is that someone who has a financial crime charge on them is running for a political office. According to Adams Oshiomhole, join the ruling party and your sins are forgiven. These are the things that are making the economy difficult. It is not increment in minimum wage. So if all of these things are put in place, nobody will talk about it. If you pay the Nigerian worker 5,000 naira monthly, as long as they can afford what the basics of life with that 5,000 naira, nobody will complain about minimum wage. If all of these things are put in place, we will just be living our life. The attraction to Europe and America would drop. You know that there is brain drain in Nigeria. The best of our brains are running out of the country because the country is unbearable and it will reduce productivity. But in case all of these are not put in place, obviously they aren't. The next thing to do is to stage a revolution. And you can decide what kind of revolution you want. Any revolution that can bring about change is a good one. But for me, the revolution should not be televised.